Well, good morning. So nice to be back here, and I'm joining you, of course, this morning from Calgary, where I just read this morning the mayor of this town, this city, has been named the best mayor in the world by a municipal contest. And she now thinks she's going to win re-election. This, of course, is a city that didn't have water for months. And that's because of her bad planning. She's been a horrendous mayor. So I'm going to start off with that this morning because here we are. As you know, I'm doing this cross country trek, trying to stay on top of things, to go and see my mom and to take care of some legal matters that have to be taken care of, and to meet with people in person and family members. And this is the only time I've had to do this. So thank you for your patience. I know this is a weird time to do this broadcast. It's only 9 o'clock here in Calgary, but I know it's 11 o'clock Eastern time when I usually do this. Well, I see a lot of you folks are saying, don't do the later schedule. Well, I'll look at all of the comments and see what I did to move to a later time was trying to accommodate all of you in BC and Alberta. I didn't want you to have to get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to watch this, but I'll have a look and see if more people are saying keep early. It's fine with me. I'm up every morning doing the work I need to do, so we can adjust. So any adventures? Well, another short flight yesterday from Saskatoon to Calgary. And yes, that's what I wanted to mention. Flew Air Canada, the first leg of the travel, because of the way we're organizing this. It's not my first choice. It's just what we had to do. And flew Saskatoon to Calgary on WestJet. Now, I used to go out of my way when I was paying for my own travel, or even when I wasn't, when I worked on the Hill, or when I was doing other things. I always patronized WestJet because I thought they were the underdog, and I thought they worked harder. But I can tell you this, after seeing Air Canada one day and WestJet the next, WestJet has got the more room in the aircraft. You mean you're literally sometimes got your nose up against that little television screen that's implanted on the seat in front of you when you're on Air Canada, and it's very annoying if you don't want to watch TV. You've got to watch something, and it's right literally looking at you in the face and can't move an inch. I'm not a very tall man. If I was 6'3", I would like, good grief, how would I? But air travel has become just a gross inconvenience. But WestJet is trying, and I tell you, the flight attendants, I still like to say stewardesses at times. I know it's totally politically incorrect, but much nicer to deal with, much less of an attitude. Like they treat you, Air Canada treats you like they're the entitled ones, and you're the ones just lucky enough to be flying with them. They've still got Air Canada reminds me of CBC, although it's a private company now. It was, of course, government company in the very beginning, but they still have that attitude of a government company. I'll say that anyway. I don't want to meander too far off the track here, but this is just sort of a travel log so far. And tomorrow, actually, I might actually get out and show you some of the scenes here. Thank God we arrived in the midst of a Chinook. And of course, I lived in Calgary for a little while. It was never somewhere I lived for a long time, but I have lived in Calgary. And you look forward to those Chinooks because they not only warm things up, it can get very cold here, minus 20, minus 30, for short periods of time. But when those Chinooks come through, it not only warms everything up, melts the snow because they don't clear the snow on the roads. Some people who move here are shocked to find that out. They just wait for the next Chinook to melt the snow. So anyway, that's probably enough about more than you need to know about where I am today in Calgary. I haven't even shown you the introduction. Let's do that, and we'll be right back. with all the news you need to know. And where are we going today? The fiscal cliff. Fascinating stuff. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station. Share it with your friends and family. I really appreciate it when you do that. It means a lot for a small station like this. We're trying to hit the 40,000 subscriber mark by the end of the year. Now, December 7th today. Does that ring a bell with anybody that day? Yes, this is Pearl Harbor Day. So we're trying between now and December 31st. That gives us just over 3 weeks. We're going to hit 40,000. I know we can do it, folks. Can't do it without your support. And thank you for your patience. I said I was going to do these broadcasts every day, no matter where I am, no matter what's happening, and I'm staying true to that commitment. It's a pleasure to do so. And so I want to start off, what's the fiscal cliff? Now, I got into this just a little bit the other day. And the fiscal cliff, of course, comes from the Obama era in the United States. I would say about 2012. Just before the 2012 election, there was talk about hitting the fiscal cliff. And that meant that the debt ceiling in the United States had to be raised because they had gone past the debt ceiling and over the fiscal cliff. I mean, if it doesn't sound like a very good thing, it isn't. It means your economy potentially could collapse because of overspending, because you have so much debt and you've gone over what your government says is allowable. Now, this is happening in Canada right now. And this is why, and I'll show you a clip in a sec to show you how evasive the Liberals are about this. They don't want to talk about it. Chrystia Freeland, every time she's asked about the fall economic update, I mean, here we are, like 2 weeks away from winter, and they're talking. They never do a fall economic update in December because they're going home soon. The Christmas break, and I don't call it the winter break or the December. No, it's the Christmas break. They're taking that very shortly. I think they got another week in the house. Now, what is going on here with this fall economic update that's not coming? They don't want to release it, people. It's such bad news. It's so catastrophic. It's so devastating that they don't want to talk about it. Pierre Poilievre knows this. I don't know if he's got this, if he's got the hard facts, if he's seen the information, if it's been leaked to him. He knows they're going over the $40 billion deficit. And that's, of course, where Freeland and Trudeau said they wouldn't go, that they're not going to overspend past $40 billion. You say, well, what's $40 billion to this government? Very, very. But that's, of course, the debt is the accumulation of deficits, and it just adds to the national debt, which is horrendous. It's way over proportionally what the Americans even have. And that is causing incredible economic malaise in Canada. I'll show you this, but here's, if you want to know what else the fiscal cliff means, I mean, it's not some esoteric idea about this magic $40 billion mark. It's practical. This is why I want to show you this. And I've got some other, so I can read this to you. Average family grocery bill to go up another $800 next year. Now, you say, wow, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it sure is. And this is the government who told us that climate change is more important than your grocery bill. And believe it or not, I'm going to show you a clip where a Liberal cabinet minister claims climate change is to blame for your grocery bill going up, not the carbon tax. Of course, any idiot could tell you it's the carbon tax because the carbon tax is so pervasive It's not just a carbon tax on your gasoline. It's not just a carbon tax on your fuel. It's not just a carbon tax on home heating. It's a carbon tax on everything because it affects everything. Everything has to be transported. Everything has to be moved from one place to another, largely by vehicles, trucks. Farmers have to heat their barns. They have to use heat on their farms to grow food. That increases the price of the food. So I'm going to read this. Economic and social applications of what's going on with your grocery bill. It's not necessarily just the price of food that is so expensive. It is that people are having to make these really hard decisions based on the current economic climate we're in. Okay, so what does that mean? I'm going to read this to you. Food insecurity. Over 8.7 million Canadians are food insecure, with the northern and maritime regions bearing the brunt. Food bank visits exceeded $2 million in March 2024. A historic high, reflecting a 90% increase since 2019. Who has been prime minister since 2019? Annual cost. A typical family of four is projected to spend... Sorry, my phone went off again. It's projected to spend $16,833.67 on food in 2025, an $801.56 increase from 2024. This calculation assumes minimal food waste and exclusive home meal preparation, highlighting affordability concerns. Rising prices are reshaping shopping habits, with 48% of Canadians, that's almost 50% of Canadians, are seeking more sales and discounts, and 28% resorting to reduced food consumption. Couponing, bulk buying, and switching brands are increasing costs. Well, that's always been the case. No surprise there. But 50% of people are saying, if it's not on sale, I can't afford it. That's what it comes down to. And we hear the Trudeau government every day in the House of Commons suggest that we have the highest growth rate in the G7, lowest debt to GDP ratio. How many times have you heard that talking point be spewed out of the mouth of these Liberal cabinet ministers? Namely, Chrystia Freeland, every time she's up, Justin Trudeau. And when he's not telling you that the Canadian carbon rebate is putting more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, a blatant lie. He knows it's a lie, but just, hey, we know from other dictatorial regimes in history, which will have to be remain nameless right now, but you know what I'm talking about. Other regimes have told the big lie. You tell the big lie over and over again, and somebody might believe it. The difference is people don't believe it anymore. They're not buying into this. Let's have a look at this. I know a lot of you people say, don't play any more question period. I can't stand it. This, sometimes you got to watch a bit of it because it's incredible the lengths the Liberals will go in their lie making, their lie crafting. Oh, all right. That's not what I wanted to show. That's part 2 of this.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honour member for Thornhill.
Madam Speaker, there's snow on the ground and it's pretty cold in the capital, and Canadians from coast to coast are putting up Christmas trees. But the finance minister is stuck in fantasy land, somehow still thinks it's fall. She's weeks behind on delivering the fall economic statement to this House and to Canadians. The parliamentary budget officer says that this minister blew past her deficit reduction targets, adding more inflationary spending and crippling debt that Canadians will have to pay. But we don't know for sure because she's nowhere to be found. So when will the finance minister tell Canadians just how much money she spent?
The honourable minister.
Madam Speaker, we look forward to answering our colleagues' questions, but I do feel it's important to recognize the gravity of this day. It is the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, and 35 years ago, 14 women's...
I'm sorry, the question had nothing to do about violence against women. Nobody's belittling that point, but why would she stand up, answer the question with a comment and a statement about what happened with, I think it was Mark Leping, if his name rings a bell, back at the Polytechnic Institute in Montreal. It was a horrible event. It has nothing to do with the question that was asked.
This minister blew past her deficit reduction targets, adding more inflationary spending and crippling debt that Canadians will have to pay. But we don't know for sure because she's nowhere to be found. So when will the finance minister tell Canadians just how much money she spent?
The honourable minister.
Madam Speaker, we look forward to answering our colleagues' questions, but I do feel it's important to go.
Madam Speaker, Conservatives on this side of the House stand in solidarity with all of the victims' families on this tragic day.
Now, get back to the question.
My question, however, was about the finance minister and the fact that she is hiding today. She's hiding. She hasn't hidden the fact that she's doubled Canada's debt. She gave us the highest inflation in 40 years, and she delivered the lowest projected growth of any advanced economy. Right. She's trying to hide the truth for Canadians. So I will ask once again, if she doesn't want to come clean, can anybody on that side of the House tell us exactly how much Canada's deficit is this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, we'll put our record up against the Conservatives any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Somehow still thinks it's false.
Let me quote from a former.
Now, this is Ryan Turnbull. This is not even a minister who got up here. And just listen to how he tries to not answer this question.
The Conservatives any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Let me quote from a former governor of the Bank of Canada, David Dodge. He said, because it was obsessively focused on reducing the federal deficit over fiscal years 2011 and 12 through 2015, the Harper government...
Did I hear Harper government? Yes, that's the other talking point of the last couple of weeks. Problem today? Stephen Harper's fault. David Dodge, I mean, good. There is a good Liberal to be quoting. And it's Stephen Harper's fault. We're headed for the fiscal cliff. It's Stephen Harper's fault. It's that we have border insecurity. Remember that the other day? Yeah, blame it on Stephen Harper 9 years ago. And this jackass has got the gall to suggest if there's any fiscal cliff approaching, it's Stephen Harper's fault that happened 9 years ago. These people will stop at nothing to invent their own reality, or in other words, to keep telling blatant lies.
Necessarily contributed to a slower, rather more muted recovery. So while Conservatives slow down our recovery, we have accelerated our post-pandemic recovery and are now on track to have the highest growth rate in the G7. That's in addition to Canadian work.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Madam Speaker, if that minister wants to put his money where his mouth is, he should call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide. The finance minister, however, is going to have to find another job after the next election, and maybe she'll find out that you can't turn in your work that's been overdue. It's something that we learn in grade school, and she must have skipped that day. Her government lost control of our borders. They've lost control of immigration. They've clearly lost control of the deficit, too, and they're trying to cover up their tracks. Yeah. So I will ask again, for those in the back, and I will say it slower, what is Canada's deficit this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Let's just review, Madam Speaker, the Conservative track record on affordability. So they will not support feeding hungry kids healthy meals at school. 400,000 more kids, they say, no, we don't want to feed you. They will not support a GST break over the holidays on food, toys, and other essentials.
It's really pathetic how these morons just read a talking point. They didn't even hear the question. Or if they did hear the question, they have no intention of answering. Yeah, I know, we all know this. But it's just, at this point, the lies are just so overpowering and so overbearing, it just makes you want to throw up.
Other essentials over the holidays, they say, no, we won't support a GST cut for Canadians. They also won't lift a finger to fight climate change, which is cited in the report as being the greatest driver of food price inflation. When will they get on?
Did you hear that? Climate change in this report by a Liberal is suggesting that climate change is the greatest driver of food prices. How anybody with half a brain could accept this, and how anybody with even half a brain could put this theory out there and expect Canadians to believe it for a minute is beyond belief.
Side with Canadians and actually support.
L'honorable député de Lévis-Lotbinière.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière.
And Jacques basically asked the same question and gets the same answer. It's climate change. Remember Justin Trudeau just said climate change is just as important. Fighting climate change is just as important as your grocery bill. And if you have trouble feeding your family, think about all you're doing to fight climate change. It's like we're all living in not the third world, but a fourth world where illusion reigns supreme. And Justin Trudeau has created his own little artificial economy that is completely based on statistics he pulls from the air and from ideas and notions that are grounded in mythology and lies. Let's have a look at what I mean by this. Justin Trudeau is banking on the green economy, which how many times have I said the green economy means if you're getting a good paying job in the oil patch, you're going to be a janitor. That's what that translates into in real terms. It means you're going to have a job as a janitor, and it doesn't pay as well as working in the oil patch. And the green economy is a mythology. It doesn't exist. Let's watch this. This is CBC. We all hate CBC at times. Sometimes, I've known good reporters at CBC over the decades. This is a good report, and watch this.
The Premier called it a big deal 1 year ago.
We are charting a course in Canada and internationally.
But what was once dubbed the future of Canada's energy sector is now far from certain. The E1 lithium battery plant in Maple Ridge was announced last November, poised to be the largest manufacturer of its kind in Canada, an expansion of an already existing facility in the city. But company executives confirmed it's on pause due to changing market conditions. Its Taiwan-based parent company will instead focus on manufacturing batteries overseas.
They're not canceling the project. They're pausing the contract. As with most projects of these sizes, you're always going to go back and evaluate what is going on.
Maple Ridge Mayor Dan Rumi is trying to be optimistic. Hundreds of jobs in his city hang in the balance.
We're here to make sure that we're doing everything we can through the permitting process and making sure that they have everything they need from the city because we want them to be here.
Ottawa pledged $200 million to E1, BC another $80 million. Those dollars have yet to be sent over to the company. Officials are calling it a slight adjustment to the market.
When you have adjustment on consumer habits, on supply chain, on technology, having slight readjustments is something that we've seen.
But this isn't the only clean energy project in BC that's now pumping the brakes. Just weeks ago, a massive hydrogen project in Prince George was put on hold, with project leaders saying it was no longer commercially viable. Economists warn the market is already overcrowded.
And so for somebody to come in with yet another plant in the next few years, it would enter into a very uncertain market.
Clean energy uncertainty that experts say is also fueled by Canada's looming federal election and a changing government just south of the border.
Now, what does that all mean for the Liberal government?
What are you doing in here?
I'm having a nervous breakdown.
So whenever you see Chrystia Freeland having a nervous breakdown, as she does routinely in the House of Commons, you see her slumped over at her desk sometimes, and it's actually a medical concern. There might be something wrong with this woman. Medically, she does not look well at times. And every time she's asked about this fiscal cliff, about the deficit, and about this fall economic statement, which of course is not going to happen. and it won't be a winter economic statement because that never happens. She looks like she is having a nervous breakdown because if she understands one thing, is that she's wearing this. And you bet Trudeau will throw her under the bus next. And it's perfect that she's a woman, because that's exactly what Justin Trudeau always does to females in his cabinet. As soon as they prove to be expendable, or he finds a good reason to get rid of them, he doesn't hesitate to seize the opportunity and get rid of them. Yes. You remember Jody Wilson-Raybould? I didn't always agree with Jody Wilson-Raybould on abortion issues. I don't think she was necessarily the greatest justice minister, but she did have something called principle and ethics, which I don't think she shares with very many people in the Trudeau cabinet. And she did take a stand for honesty, and I give her credit for that. Liberal or not, whether I agree with her on every issue or not, I give her credit for that. I don't think Freeland is ever going to take a stand for honesty and ethics. She's just going to be gone one day. She will be there one day and gone the next, and Justin Trudeau will blame the fiscal cliff. He will blame the economic catastrophe that we're facing on Chrystia Freeland. If only Chrystia had listened to me. And of course, Trudeau's last finance minister said the exact opposite. He advised on lower spending, and Justin Trudeau said, go to hell. I'll spend as much money as I please. So, of course, Justin Trudeau is ultimately responsible for all of this mess that he has created, and he continues to create every day. So,
Mr. Speaker, I wish you had afforded the same courtesy to the Minister of Finance, who also wanted to answer a question. And I think it would be appropriate to make sure that we apply the same standard moving forward. But what I would like to say to the Leader of the Opposition is that we gave him an opportunity to debate that, and instead of taking it, they ran away afraid. So, Mr. Speaker, I am surprised.
Yeah. And of course, there's having a nervous breakdown there, and she does actually
that he's even bringing this up, because when we gave
and this is
him an opportunity,
and she does actually get into action there at the very end. It's like she's coming out of a comatose incident. I don't know if there's anything going on. If there is, I certainly don't wish her harm. No, I don't wish any politician physical harm. I wish them the best of health. I just don't think she should be deluding herself that she's serving Canada as the finance minister. I don't think she should be deluding Canadians about how bad the situation. She's lying to us every day. And maybe it's time for Chrystia Freeland to find another job, back as a hack journalist like she used to be, or supporting those Ukrainian regiments that are highly suspect in their political views. Maybe that's where she should be, but certainly not as finance minister. And Justin Trudeau, somebody asked me, will I take the redacted challenge? Because, of course, the last time I was on Redacted with Clayton Morris, I mentioned that every time Justin Trudeau leaves the country, he not only embarrasses himself, he embarrasses a whole country. Now, this provoked or prompted gales of laughter from Natalie Morris. And, bless her. She is such a wonderful journalist. And both of them are. I just love talking to them both. And so Natalie said, of course, could David Krayden ever say anything nice about Justin Trudeau? Well, it's very hard. I guess he has nice hair, and mine is still there. So, well, we're about the same age, actually, but I think Justin's had some work, and he's certainly a piece of work in many ways. Let's put it that way. He's a piece of work. Yes. And he can be very comical at times. He can be very funny unintentionally, but he certainly has provoked some gales of laughter from me over the years with things he said. But I think it's time for him to find another job, though. I think Justin should go back to the theater. You remember the theater. Oh, you ever see the movie All About Eve? Yes, with Betty Davis. It's all about the theater and how the theater is the only thing that matters. Well, maybe that's what Justin Trudeau should wake up tomorrow and say to himself. The theater, that's what really matters. I've been doing theater anyway in the House of Commons for 9 years now, pretending things are as they aren't. So maybe it's time to go back to the real theater and win an award. Yes, that's where Justin's future is. I will say this for him. He's been a great actor as a prime minister. It's the best role he's ever played. Unfortunately, it's also Gotterdammerung. He's playing, it's a Wagnerian tragedy, the way Justin Trudeau plays the role of prime minister. But he can be awfully convincing at times. I will give him that much. And there it is. I want to end with this. That's the fiscal cliff that Donald Trump is viewing. I don't know if this was intentional or subliminal, or whether it was completely by accident, but isn't that the fiscal cliff that Donald Trump is standing and gazing at? And that's what he sees for Canada. Believe me, the United States is there too. It's going to take tremendous work from the Trump administration to come back from the edge of disaster. But I think that's what Donald Trump is saying here. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back again tomorrow with all the news you need to know. And let's continue to resolve to resist. And the next time I talk to you, I think I'll still be in Calgary. I'm on my way to Chilliwack tomorrow. And this is going to be very difficult but fruitful next couple of days. Thank you for your patience again as I come to you on the road. And I'll be back again tomorrow with all the news you need to know.